And it is 6 o'clock p.m. So I will go ahead and call the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee to order. Sandeep, do you want to call Concord?
Yes, and I will call the Concord School Committee to order.
And as we are all remote, if we can please just roll call in.
Reject present.
Kelleher present.
Morano present.
Fishardi present.
Watterson present.
Williams present.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and jump in. The main reason that we are having this meeting is because we had so many topics to cover on the June 3rd meeting that this is sort of an overflow business meeting to cover the discussion items that we could not get to. As a result, there are some things that we will not be doing that we normally do. There won't be a student update. We won't have chairs or superintendent update, things like that. But we do have the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone wanted to pull from the consent agenda?
No, there aren't any items to pull. I just would, there are a few little things that are on the May 6th and May 20th, nothing that I would pull them for, but again, I would urge transcribers to transcribe with care so that all voices are heard.
Okay, understood. Can I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to
moved.
approve the consent agenda.
All right, and I think Michael made the motion. Tracy, do you want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Thank you for that call out, Michael. All right, we will need to roll call.
Reject aye.
Kelleher,
Both.
aye for region.
For both. Excuse me.
Morano, aye for both.
Fishardi, aye for both.
Watterson, aye for region.
Williams, aye for both.
All right, perfect. We do have public comment next. Just as a reminder, like any other meeting, public comment will be a period of 20 minutes. This is a meeting in the public, not with the public, and the school committee will not be responding to any comments. As we are all on Zoom tonight, please use the raise hand feature. And as we identify people, we will promote you forward so that you can speak. And as a reminder, 3 minutes is the limit per person. I'll make sure to get a timer going. So starting at 6:02 p.m. And Lori, would you promote Mary Beth Tinker, please? Mary Beth, if you want to come off mute, identify yourself and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello,
So, one sec. Lori, would you also promote Michelle? She's in the list of attendees. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary Beth. Sorry.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Mary Beth Tinker, and I'm here in Washington. I'm attending tonight's meeting today out of a concern for free speech rights of students and the importance of youth voices. The issue came to my attention recently when I learned that an 8th grader, Eris Apoyo, was held back while on a school trip to Washington, D.C. because of a t-shirt that he was wearing that said, "Bombing children is not self-defense." Ironically, the trip to Washington was intended to help students learn about democracy, but that was not the lesson from his censorship. While the violation of Eris's rights was shocking, I was heartened to see a quote by Superintendent Hunter in the Concord Bridge saying, quote, "We support students with whatever expression they have, whether it be speech, clothing, or other symbolism," end quote. I applaud Superintendent Hunter and also Eris for giving the school committee a chance now to affirm such a respectful stance towards all district students. I was once an 8th grader myself, like Eris, who was upset by news of the bombing of children. At that time, it was in Vietnam. To express that, a small group of us kids in Des Moines, Iowa, wore black armbands to school to mourn the dead in Vietnam and to call for a Christmas truce. For that, we were suspended. We were punished, like Eris, and censored. But the ACLU challenged the censorship winning a landmark Supreme Court ruling in 1969 saying that neither students or teachers leave their constitutional right to expression at the schoolhouse gate. The only exception would be if the student expression was substantially disruptive or impinged on the rights of others, and neither of those apply to Eris's t-shirt. Subsequent Supreme Court rulings, several of them carved out other exceptions, such as obscenity in public schools, but none of those apply to Eris's t-shirt either. Today, students are confronting many issues that affect their lives. And in order to thrive, they need to be able to discuss these issues and to have a say about them, even when those issues are controversial. Just as Ellen Garrison did in the 1800s when she campaigned against slavery. I commend Eris for caring about the bombing of children across the world and for speaking out about that, especially when those bombs are financed by our tax money, money that is taken away from kids like Eris and from his school and from our communities. And I also commend Eris for caring about kids right here in the United States and how he has campaigned against the abusive treatment of children in for-profit detention centers. He has put his civics lessons into action. I admire Superintendent
If you could just wrap up, please.
I have one more second.
Yeah.
I admire Superintendent Hunter for saying that she supports student voices. People say that youth are the future, but they are also the present. They are right here, right now, and they need your support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If there's any other public comment, please raise your hand. I think Eris was next.
Hello? Can you hear me?
You're good, yes. Please just say your full name and address, please, for the record.
Yep. Eris Apollos, Conant Street, Concord. My name is Eris. I'm an 8th grader at Concord Middle School, and I feel the need to bring to the attention of the school committee the most recent free speech violation at CMS. 2 weeks ago, on my 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip, I was pulled from the group by my vice principal, Daniel Hauserman. The reason I was pulled aside? Simply because I had worn a t-shirt that stated a moral message that aligns with international law. The message read, quote, "Bombing kids is not self-defense." Hauserman told me that Concord parents, who were not even on the trip, mind you, had complained to Superintendent Hunter about my shirt, and that Dr. Hunter had ordered that I be excluded from the rest of the day's activities and sent back to my hotel room. In the 1969 landmark Supreme Court case, Tinker v. Des Moines, it was ruled that students don't lose their right to free speech at school or school-sponsored events. The message on the shirt I wore was constitutionally protected, and therefore the district should not have punished me for wearing it. It's also important for me to note that while we were at the Holocaust Museum, the Holocaust survivor that was talking to students had stopped and thanked me for wearing my shirt. She stated that it's especially necessary for students to speak up against atrocities near and far. Let me just repeat this for all of you. Dr. Hunter went against the words of support from a Holocaust survivor, someone who has more of a right to speak about what happens when the world turns away from mass murder and genocide than anybody else. Dr. Hunter punished me for this raises serious moral concerns for the district, such as if the district supports the bombing of innocent school children across the world, or if the district refuses to agree with the First Amendment. I yield the rest of my time, but I urge the district to take action against this obscene moral concern and free speech violation. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Tui Rogers is next.
I don't know if he seems to be declining.
Okay. Looks like the next person then is Dee Wengrove.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Debbie Wengervitz, 1315 Old Marlborough Road in Concord. And I don't ever come before the school committee for anything, but after seeing a few of the meetings, and especially the one on June 3rd, which was very painful to watch, I felt like I really needed to not be silent anymore, but to speak up. And I think it's because the actions I felt like of the committee hopefully did not really reflect what the values are, because your actions speak much louder than words that are often, easy to say about inclusion and respect and a sense of community. I felt like it was a foregone conclusion before the vote was even taken as to what the outcome was going to be. There were committee members who clearly it was a confusing process. The nominating process was confusing and awkward, and I feel like it wasn't in handled in a very professional or respectful way. And the other thing I want to say is, consistently when people's voices are not listened to, and in some cases it seems like deliberately blocked, I feel like, people are elected to carry forward the voices of many in the community and to represent people who aren't always represented or whose voices aren't heard. And I call upon you guys to dig deeper and do a better job, because I think you have it to do that. It's your responsibility to do that, and you should be accountable to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right, the next person with their hand up is Jean Smith. Jean, if you want to come off mute and say your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Jean Smith. I live at 15 Conant Street in Acton, and I think that Eris is a remarkable young person, and he's sort of standing alone. I don't know how many kids in his school stand up for things like that. He's standing up on very strong beliefs for good causes, and to silence his freedom of speech is just, because he's alone, it seems like it's easier to punish him because not many people are doing what he's doing, but he's doing what's right, and he's trying to stand up for injustice, and it's just a matter of freedom of speech and caring about doing the right thing. And that's all I want to say, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, looks like Ellen Quackenbush has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. My name's Ellen Quackenbush, 206 Prairie Street. Title of my note to you guys is "This is not democracy." I don't know what behind the scene coordination occurred to orchestrate the nomination process for the CCHS and Concord School Committee chair and vice chair positions. But to me, these events were pre-planned and were not at all spontaneous. 4 times Drew Magliozzi nominated Michael Williams for chair and vice chair positions. And each time, the nomination and amendment process seemed preordained to defeat Michael. Coincidental? I don't think so. As in every case, the nominators and seconders had supportive speeches at hand and fully prepared. Supporting my point, Dr. Hunt had started off the process asking for a single nomination. This process was, in my opinion, flawed from the get-go. Why not ask for nominations from all candidates interested in the positions, followed by a speech by each candidate on their qualifications? This is how the League of Women Voters handles candidate forums. This was not, however, sadly, how Dr. Hunter set the stage. The result was a preordained situation, denying Michael any position in the school committee leadership and simply reinstalling the status quo. Just to remind everyone who is listening to me, Michael was the top vote getter at his election. Your nomination and election process completely ignored the will of the voters, but by denying Michael any leadership position, effectively silencing him. What does this teach our children and the wider Concord community, whom you are supposed to be representing? That voting doesn't matter. Voting does not matter when the status quo can and will ignore voters to install their preferred candidates. I'm simply saddened by the lessons you're teaching our children and the message you're sending to the community. Please do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. I believe next is Abu Sage.
Seems to be declining.
Okay. Do you want to try Tui Rogers again then, please?
Yes. Seems to be declining.
Okay. And then Nancy, I may be botching this, but Akanian.
Also declined.
All right. Tui has his hand up one more time. Same for Nancy.
I'm not sure if we're having a technical problem. Should be an invitation sent to them. I'm going to hit the button that says allow to talk without being promoted and see if that works.
Okay.
Oh, I think, did that
There
work?
you go. Yep, I think you're good, Tui.
I was
Okay.
muted. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And I thought what Aaron said was really remarkable. So what I have to say relates to the meeting last week too, and to the last year, really. You know, if say, Brian, if you were asking to get an issue on the agenda, say asking for more representation from the kids from Carlisle, and the school committee banded together and purposefully pushed back, telling you, you're only one person. Your voice doesn't really matter, and you need more support. And if this continued frustrating you, and your constituency to no end, I would observe this as a public citizen, say that the school committee was being kind of cruel to you, mean-spirited, didn't like you, and that it was being cruel to you, it was suppressing your voice. If the committee worked to carefully prevent you from holding a position of leadership on the committee, as you all executed against Michael Williams, as spoken before at your last meeting, I would say, well, they hate Brian, and they're using their power to shut him up, to keep him out. Cruel, people being mean to people. Nobody likes that. Well, many don't like that. But when a school committee denies the voices supporting that minority of Black children, both from Boston and Concord, when this committee demonstrates cruelty and mean-spirited suppression of specific voices, that cruelty is given a name: racism. And the reason that this form of cruelty has its own name is because of the hundreds of years Black people were held in slavery, even here in Concord. For hundreds of years, Black people have had their voices suppressed, even as they were lynched, raped, tortured, and had their children sold. And even after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, officially ending American apartheid, murder, incarceration, and suppression of the Black voice has continued to plague American society. And now in America, we have leadership that is actively erasing Black, Native American, and other minority history across the land. I did not expect to find this racism so alive and well here in Concord. the seat of the American Revolution, home of the Transcendentalists, and founding place of the Concord Female Anti-Slavery Society, a town, Concord, renowned for its leadership. Where are we leading now? It is no wonder that there is bullying, racism, even anti-Semitism in our schools when this committee is sending such a strong signal of approval for that behavior to the school superintendent. As Michelle said, this committee should be modeling inclusive, empathetic behavior, not cruel and discriminating behavior. This saddens me to no end. All cruelty towards people saddens me. And since all things are connected and all actions have their reactions, I wonder what lessons the children of the school committee members are taking away from their parents' behavior. My mother used to say, little pitchers have big ears. Your children are learning from your actions, even if you say things that sound right. They know. What kind of empathy do your children evince towards the Black children they rub shoulders with in the Concord Public Schools?
Thank you, Tui. Let's try Nancy again.
I'm going to try this mode of just allowing to talk and see if that works better. Oh, good. I think so.
All right, Nancy, you should be able to.
Okay, can you all hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I am here to speak about Aris and the situation, the debacle in DC about his T-shirt. But I want to give a shout out to Mr. Rogers, who was so eloquent just now about the issue of racism and also about the issue of everything being connected. This kind of silencing repression should not be abided by anyone, and let alone by school committee members. On June 4th, I sent an email to Superintendent Hunter with respect to the situation with Aris being required to remove his T-shirt and then his subsequent removal to the hotel. I indicated that a trip to Washington, D.C. is a trip precisely, as Mary Beth Tinker said, to educate students about American democracy by visiting the institutions that represent its values. On the May 18th school committee, when I testified during public comment, I spoke to this issue. I'm a retired educator. And in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's a requirement of having civics classes in our public schools, and that the raison d'etre of these classes is to educate young people to become informed citizens who participate actively in our democracy. I argued at that time, and it holds true now, that Aris was already engaged in this civic work as an 8th grader. I am very concerned that you will discount all of this and what people are saying. In the name of what? I am very confused about that. I am the granddaughter of survivors of the Armenian genocide, and it's time for the adults in the room to stop colluding with the kind of censorship and repression, which is in fact among the last stages of the 10 stages of genocide, denial and erasure. At the time, at the March 18th meeting, I said I was dismayed when smart people collude with such immorality and irrationality. Do you honestly fucking believe that bombing kids is self-defense? Enough. You cannot be good Germans. You cannot fall into line like little Eichmanns. And to be honest, it is up to you to challenge what's in plain sight, no matter how you might be no matter what the outraged parents or influential political leaders in your district might have to say. Why are you so afraid? This is outrageous. You have a moral duty to protect not only free speech, but young students like Aris. You are doing him wrong, and you are doing, therefore, other young people wrong. Please protect his rights and thereby the rights of everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are out of time. However, we were having some technical difficulties. There's one last hand raised. Jacob, I'll recognize you as the final person to speak tonight. You should be good, Jacob.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Apologize.
Yes.
There's a bit of a tech difficulty. So I was here regarding Aris and the field trip, as well as the T-shirt, and I could just be concise and get right to it. Just wanted to be very clear Acknowledging that children deserve life is not political. Mourning dead children is not political. Your children observing the world around them, weeping at the sight of human suffering, is not political. These are expressions of conscience and the basic human decency that you uphold to have your children become the leaders of our next generation through. American history has always upheld, as your founding fathers, people who have questioned authority. Thomas Jefferson, who even in his Federalist Papers, to his involvement in incentivizing, which was taken out, the abolition of slavery. The abolitionist movement to Reconstruction has been built upon leaders, free thinkers who questioned authority, challenged accepted narratives, and spoke out when something was wrong. In many ways, questioning authority is one of the most American things you can do as a person. Yet when a student peacefully expresses his moral beliefs that children should not be bombed in their sleep and families shouldn't be starved to death, they are treated as a problem to be managed and silenced. That an entire identity as a political struggle and an existence is categorized into boxes, into too political, rather than young people exercising the critical thinking schools claim to value. What's one of the most disappointing things to me about this entire debacle is that the focus has shifted away from the material conditions, the lives of those who are being mourned, of those who are being addressed by the shirt, and onto punishing one who is acknowledging the suffering and having enough care and morality to even speak out. A school should not teach students that empathy becomes unacceptable when it is controversial. Children deserve life, and acknowledging that children should not be bombed in their sleep and families shouldn't be starved to death is not a political statement. It is a basic humanity and moral statement. Now, the last thing I will say is my cousin, who is now only 19 years old, and in April of 2025, through drone strikes overnight, had 17 family members martyred in one night, with the youngest being his 9-year-old niece, who was bombed in her sleep, wearing the bow her father put on him before her whole family. All 5 of them were martyred in that one night. Acknowledging that children deserve life is not a political statement. I surrender the rest of my time, and thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. All right, that is the end of public comment. Thank you, everybody. We will now move on to our discussion items. The first being the Concord Municipal Decarbonization Roadmap. We have Megan Zamuto, Deputy Town Manager, here to discuss this with us. And it is something that the Regional School Committee does need to vote on because there's an impact to the high school. Megan, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, good evening. Sorry, I'm in my husband's basement office and I didn't realize that that the camera was up here. So thank you, everyone. My name is Megan Zamuto. I'm the Deputy Town Manager in Concord, and I am here to speak with you this evening about a decarbonization roadmap. And I will just pull up the slides.
And just for clarity, I think both school committees need to vote it.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, no, just so we clarify at the end when you decide what to do.
Can folks see the screen okay? Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much. So again, my name is Megan Zamuto. I'm the Deputy Town Manager in Concord, and I appreciate you fitting this on the agenda this evening. I know it's a busy time at the end of the school year. I am here to talk about Concord's decarbonization roadmap. The town was able to create this document through a state-funded technical assistance program. Tonight, I plan to share more about the roadmap and ask for your endorsement of this document. The Select Board will also consider adoption of the roadmap at their meeting next week on June 22nd. The endorsement is a critical step. They're the final requirement for Concord to receive a Climate Leader Community designation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. So just to kind of ground us in some Concord's decarbonization goals, they're really guided by 2 elements: our 2020 Climate Action and Resilience Plan, which we are currently updating, and a town meeting vote in 2024, which updated our energy goals, striving to reduce emissions by 50% in 2030, 75% in 2040, and 85% by 2050 from the baseline that was established in 2008. I mentioned the Climate Action and Resilience Plan update. We also call it CARP. And I just want to plug that we had a number of outreach efforts and stakeholder interviews this spring. And we did include students at CCHS. Some of the climate clubs were able to participate in one of our focus groups. And we will be coming back together for additional conversation and prioritization this fall. So please stay tuned. So the climate action and decarbonization, it's really in line with our community values. And so I just wanted to kind of ground where we're coming from. So this roadmap was really developed, as I mentioned. It was a state-funded technical assistance program. They looked at 17 municipal and school buildings and our municipal fleets. This is data that we report annually through our Green Communities program. So they have all the information and they're just kind of looking at it and reviewing building age, energy use, emissions, equipment replacement cycles, and identify potential pathways to eliminate municipal fossil fuel use over time. And the goal really was to focus on replacing systems as they reach the end of life, not kind of move forward with an early replacement. So what the roadmap really includes is it's a high-level planning document. It's evaluating future facility investments, a framework for reducing emissions over time, and a tool to support grants and other funding opportunities. It is not a capital plan. It's not an authorization to spend money. It doesn't have dollar amounts in the plan if you had a chance to take a look at it. It's really not a commitment to any specific project or a detailed study. It's really an overview of if you were to decarbonize, these are the things that would need to be considered. And so some of the key findings here, they really highlighted 6 buildings, and 5 of them are active school facilities that were identified as high impact buildings. So the buildings that they included were the Beatty Center, obviously not a school building, but then Alcott, Willard, Thoreau, CCHS, and Ripley. And so the heating systems, in all the schools, except of course, the new Ellen Garrison building at the Concord Middle School, rely on natural gas, and emissions can be reduced over time through the planned equipment replacement. For recommended strategies, the roadmap identifies that we should be looking for energy efficiency improvements. We should be looking at evaluating heat pump technologies, considering if geothermal is feasible, and evaluating future solar opportunities in these buildings. But, if these concepts and plans are going to turn into projects, you may be thinking, where is the money going to come from? How are we funding this? And so I want to just spend a couple minutes on one of our strategies for accessing funds for these types of upgrades or improvements. And so one is the climate leader designation. Becoming a certified climate leader community provides access to grant funding to a municipality for support of design, construction, studying, implementing energy efficient activities. They can assist with activities related to construction, renewable energy, energy storage. There's a $1 million grant that we would become eligible for municipal projects after this roadmap, if it is adopted. And so the Climate Leader Program, there's a number of things communities have to do. We have to have a fleet electrification study or a fleet electrification plan, which we do. We need to be a green community in good standing. We need to have adopted the specialized stretch code, which town meeting did a few years ago. So of the check boxes, we have done them all except for having our community adopt this decarbonization roadmap. And we get a couple opportunities through the year, really 2. One is June 30th, and one I think is December 30th. And those are the windows that the towns that have all of those elements are able to apply for this designation and then are able to unlock some specific grants for some of these concepts that could become projects. But grants alone are likely, a $1 million grant is not going to take over all of these potential projects and initiatives. So I just wanted to mention, we're starting to look at this other service, which is called Building Decarbonization as a Service. Some of you might remember about a year ago, we had a forum at the Goodwin Library, and we talked about the ESCO service. That's an energy savings function where you can kind of take some of the savings for installing efficiencies and apply that to the financing of the project. And we were considering that for a while, but as we're working with the land use working group and thinking about the future of our buildings, it didn't seem like the best model for Concord. We wanted a little bit more of a targeted approach. And so in the last year, Power Options, which is the group that we are working with on this roadmap, came up with a new product for municipalities and for nonprofits. And it's really a way to help finance and plan proactively for these community assets. And it starts with investment grade audits. So you really have a deep sense of, we can say what year a system was put in, but after you really go in there and have the technical experts review the systems, you can really get ahead of, when things might be failing and plan accordingly. So this is just a teaser. We will be back. We're working with Dr. Hunter and Bob and our finance team on the town side, but this is another part of the strategy to think about funding. It's not just all plans and no kind of follow through. So that's really it. I just wanted to wrap up. We're looking to you all. There's a number of schools listed in here. That's not unusual, but there are some steps for future thinking, and I think having this accepted by the town is a positive step in the direction of decarbonization and meeting some of our community goals. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. Do any members of the committee have questions? Andrew, it looks like you had your hand up.
Yeah, so thanks for the presentation. Oh, good. Are we being asked to endorse this roadmap just conceptually? Are you asking if we're in favor of, reducing emissions, or what? I mean, is this just a framework for forward thinking? I'm just confused what a vote tonight would do.
Sure. So a vote from both of the school committees would be two of the steps to the three, along with the select board, to our community accepting this document. And what that would do would allow us to apply for a climate leader designation. But, how does this commit us to any of the specific projects? It doesn't say, you certainly have to do a heat pump at this one specific school. When I talk about sustainability, through my work in the town and with the Climate Action Plan, the Climate Action Committee, we often talk about sustainability as a triangle, and it has to work for both the earth, for the people, and for the economics to actually be sustainable. So this plan is looking at the emissions, right? It's not looking at the finances. It is kind of looking at the human piece, because it's looking at technical assistance to assist with this, right? Because we're all looking at staff capacity. But what this would do is, it's kind of along the lines of our community values with the town meeting vote and our climate action plan of, yes, we have committed as a community that we want to work towards, what did I say up here? Kind of strategize towards decarbonization. And some of that is within our control and our buildings, and some of it is in private buildings. So this is one of the steps to working to reduce our emissions with our municipal properties that we own.
Got it. That's helpful. And so, like if the question is, do we support, to support this? I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the committee, but absolutely. My only fear in voting now, since a lot of this stuff is in the future, is that um, budget, people ask me what the biggest risk to the school committee is in the next couple of years. And to me, budget is up there. And I just don't want to pigeonhole future committees into like working through this if it doesn't fit in the budget. But I don't think that's the point of this. I think this just kicks in the next step.
Yeah. And I think what we're really hoping to do, I think it's a good point. And we're really trying to come here with a plan and working on solutions for financing. And we don't have all of that. I mean, one is a grant opportunity that this could, work towards some of our early critical needs. But the second piece is collaborating. So because all these buildings are really, kind of all of our responsibilities. And so we want to work together as a team and find solutions to make sure that we're continuing to invest in these community assets. When a system is about to fail, so we can make proactive choices and kind of be ready for when that happens.
Yeah, and if that's what this is like, are you asking the school committee, do we want to be a part of this, be helpful, work towards a goal? To me, absolutely. And so, I like this, and if our vote means you can do more work on this, that's great.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Michael?
Thanks. And again, thank you, Megan. To summarize, the vote both from school committee and select board puts us in a better position in terms of being able to get the climate leader designation, and that puts us potentially in a better position for receiving grants, asking for grants.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Asking for, well, is that a correct?
Yeah, this is the last piece to become a climate leader. So we will have everything we need to apply for that designation. And I have, what you just need to kind of make sure you have all of those pieces complete, which we do. And yes, that will unlock potential for grants to do these types of projects.
This fits with our community's professed ideals and goals towards sustainability? Question?
Yes.
And it does not tie us into any specific plan, but gives us potentially not a large piece, but access to financial wherewithal to put into some of those plans, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, there would need to be so much more detailed analysis on cost and engineering and, how would all of this work together before anyone agreed on a specific project. That's correct.
Final question. So I've been attending the land use working group meetings, and we know there's a question of whether the Ripley parcel or the Peabody parcel will still be part of our purview should the land use working group's decisions. Would that affect how any of this goes forward from the perspective of the school committee?
That's a good question too. I did have in working with Power Options, I did have them adjust some of the narrative for Ripley, since there is kind of a question mark there about what the future will be. I've heard from this group about the challenges at the facility, and I don't think we have answers to those questions yet. I know and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hunter, but I think at this point it's, kind of fixing the main issues. It's not really long-term kind of major investment.
Keeping it online to be functional, correct?
Yeah. So I did raise that with the group, and I think they referenced it because it's not realistic to say, at this point, we really need to go into a real deep dive on geothermal for that building when there are still some unknowns about the future there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Tracy, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so just for clarity, so this vote is so this will allow the town to be able to apply for grant money to move forward with all of this.
Well, the grant money probably won't cover all of it.
No, not for all of it, but it
Yeah.
will help to move us forward should we vote in favor of this.
It's adopting this roadmap, which has the the pathways to decarbonization for the highest emission producing buildings in town, 5 of which are schools. Understanding that that's the direction we're going in here. The endorsement of this will help us apply for climate leaders, which has the ability to make us more competitive for some grants and unlock some specific grants. And it's a tall ask for communities to kind of meet all the criteria. So the pool of those eligible is not extremely large. So it's like it helps us get a good chance to move forward on some of these opportunities.
Michael, another question or comment?
Yeah, I guess it might be a question to us and to Megan. I look at this the spread of the projected carbonization decrease up to 94% by 2050. It all sounds good from sustainability and an environmental standpoint. What is there? Can we paint what the potential downside would be for an affirmative vote? I'd like to hear that from any of us speculating, or specifically Megan, if you've thought on what the downside would be for the schools and for the town of opting into this now. I'm not necessarily seeing one. Again, this is my speculation. I'm not seeing one, and that we're just saying that we agree with this concept and we're not tied into any plan. We agree with this concept and would make ourselves more accessible to the funding to start working toward that. But my thinking may be short-sighted. So answer, if I was clear enough, if you can give me an answer, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have a downside on this one. I mean, we're bringing it forward with the support of the Climate Action Committee. Members are, some members are on the call here listening in. We also have our Green Community Liaison from the state, Dylan Patel, who's on. We're working closely. This is a state program that the town is working towards, and it's a way for the state to, ask communities to be thinking about decarbonization and a way to connect communities with resources to do the work. So I would say, I wouldn't be here if I didn't support it. So I think it would be a good one. But I mean, I think these are all really good questions. And I think, frankly, it's, I haven't really been before this board. It's been a few years since I've been before the school committee at all. And I'm hoping this is really the beginning of, an additional dialogue on these topics. And I talk with Bob and Dr. Hunter, but it will be good to stay in touch as we're navigating this, because decarbonization is, as I said, a goal of this community, and we do have some work to do. So let's, kind of leverage these opportunities and work together and see if we can see kind of our emission numbers start to trend down more.
Makes sense to me. Thank you again.
I can.
Bob, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw Lori's hand. I don't know, but I
did.
Megan did preview this with me, and I raised some of the same questions that Michael and Andrew raised. This will not prevent us from buying a diesel bus. We need buses until we have the electrical infrastructure. It does not obligate us to put in a geothermal well. But we can explore options, and it's a map to try to get there gradually. I do think the financial model at some point there will be some funding that we need to come up with. It's not going to all be funded through the BDAAS.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these things might not be cost beneficial. They might be climate beneficial. So, but it's a roadmap, and it's not a hard requirement that we do certain things. It's that we try our best to move towards this and work towards getting to the goal. Am I correct, Megan, with that characterization?
Yeah, I think as I said, every project is going to have to be evaluated with the cost and the technical side of things. So we're going to have to understand what the trade-offs are and have those kind of community conversations about, how to move forward with some of these projects.
Just my last comment is the MSBA, which is the school building authority, is starting to subsidize some of these transitions. So there's more and more funding opportunities. It doesn't mean it's inexpensive, but at least I think most communities are gonna have to put together a number of sources, especially if we're looking at 3 to 4 buildings. But we're keeping an eye on all of it. I don't think the committee is looking for a capital project up in the millions right now, given the town's needs in both communities. I think you're all in agreement that we're here to sit tight for a while, but I think those are opportunities we're all keeping an eye on.
Okay, sounds good. Michael, one last question or comment, and then we'll maybe move on to a motion.
Just on the point that Dr. Hunter brought up, would applying for this put us in any better stead for the grants that you just mentioned?
It certainly could, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
referencing that this work is already done seems beneficial in any environment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I am happy to entertain a motion if someone wants to make one.
Moved.
Seconded.
I think we got
I
to.
think we need
What
a
do we?
more
We got to be a little
formal-
clearer. Yeah.
I move to support the decarbonization roadmap for the town of Concord by the Concord and Concord Carlisle Regional School Committees.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call.
Megan, thank you a lot for putting this together. We appreciate it. Hurcheck, aye for both committees.
Kelleher, I for region.
Morano, I for both.
Bishardi, aye for both.
Watterson, aye for region.
Williams, aye for both.
All right. It's unanimous. So Megan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you all.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Continuing on, a brief amenities building update. Bob, I'm going to turn this over to you. Bob, you're on mute.
There we go. The bid is live for the amenities building. We have 2 things going on at once. We have as I mentioned in the last meeting, with the retirement of our facilities manager last year, he stayed on as the OPM for this year, which was really waiting for us to get it approved. Now that he's a year out from retirement, we need to get an OPM, and so we've put an RFS out that will be due this Friday, I believe it is. I'll provide an update once I get those submissions, and we'll need to select a company to work with us through the construction phase. The bid for construction is also out. There's because of the size of the project, there's filed sub bids, which happens first, and then the contractors get that information, and then they submit their bids. The bids are due, I believe it's July 17th. So I will need to have a school committee meeting to accept the bid shortly after July 17th. And so we're moving forward. The Gale Associates, the design engineering company, is working with town officials on various questions, just making sure they're kind of on board with the plan. And so far so good. We're keeping our fingers crossed that we get bids within our budget, or at least close enough to our budget that we can do this, because we do have a little bit of extra money from a state grant. So that's where we are. I'll not use my full 10 minutes. I think I'll have more information to share when we get the OPM submissions and when we get the bid submissions later in July.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Just one question. Is this something where we can schedule one summer meeting to vote on both things, or would you need the OPM voted on sooner?
I could probably do that. I'll have the OPM submissions. I can pick one and just tell them that we'd like to wait until December 17th to July 17th to actually award them the contract. If they have any concerns, I would let you know and schedule another meeting, but I don't think they would.
Okay. And I think we would be happy to, whatever you need this summer to help move things along, just say the word and we'll get a quorum together. Andrew?
Yeah, just a question about it. You might not know the answer, but with the oil prices so high right now, and does that impact the materials on this project, and will that impact the quote? And is there a risk of the quote being way too much, and would we have to wait, or are you not seeing so much as that?
I mean, I don't know how much that would affect. I mean, for the type of materials we're getting, I don't know that they would think they come from in country. So I don't know that we'd have any transportation costs that would be higher to get materials here built into the material prices. I don't know that there's actually any content of that in the materials we're purchasing, maybe some. So there could be some impact. I shouldn't say there would be none, but labor is a chunk of the costs. A lot of the site work is a chunk of the cost too. So there's certainly a significant portion of the cost that won't be impacted. There may be some impact. But I don't think Gale Associates sounded overly concerned about it. They said there might be some impact to it, but we've also seen our experience on a recent bid for the nature space that sometimes bids just come in significantly higher than expected for no reason. We just rebid that and it came in significantly lower. So we're hopeful, but I can't promise what the bids will be.
Yeah, got it. I was thinking on the site work portion, since a lot of that is diesel tractors, and doing stuff.
Right.
All right. Any other amenities building questions? Otherwise, we'll look for updates as the summer progresses.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll continue on to the electric bus update.
So I don't think this got connected to the agenda, so I'm just going to share my
Yeah, Aaron's
screen.
out, so we're doing the best we can to keep up with posting things. I will get it linked.
Make sure I got the right one. Bear with me 1 second. So I'm going to read it. It's having trouble. I'm having trouble sharing it. So I'll read it.
We saw it for 2 seconds and then it was gone.
Oh, here. Oh, yeah, that wasn't it. That was the
I'll
agenda.
try while you talk.
Okay. So we've been working with a company called Highland Fleet Solutions. And initially we were looking at 5 electric vehicles. I believe I shared at a recent meeting that they were not able to move forward with the 5 vehicles because they were from a federal grant that was designated for a low income district. And the federal government did not approve them being transferred to a non-low income district. And but they wanted to, I think they basically wanted to get their foot in the door with a brand name district in town. So they proposed to move forward with the 2 buses at the same price they would have had if they had grant funded buses. So they're actually going to have to provide buses on their own that are not grant funded. They agreed to hold their pricing that they provided on those buses. And their buses where they've sent us the specs. We've looked at them. We're comfortable with them. It's 2 Thomas electric buses. Financially, the cost is $28,600 per year per bus. And there's a 3% annual escalator built into it. Both of these buses have about 20,000 miles. They're lightly used. What's included in that price is also the charging infrastructure. They would install a charger and it would connect to the transformer that's already there that CMLP installed. Or if an upgrade was needed, they'd pay CMLP to upgrade it. So we wouldn't have to fund the charging infrastructure. They would fund that. It would be one charger with 2 ports. It would not have the bidirectional capability. That was a piece they didn't think was financially viable now, but that will have the capability to be upgraded later. They will reimburse us for maintenance costs. They'll pay fully for parts costs, and there's specified labor rates that if we do it in-house, we get reimbursed a certain amount, and if it's outside with a contractor, another amount. Or they can pay the vendors directly. Also, they're responsible for the vehicles being operational. And if there's downtimes, there's clauses built into the contract where we could have a reduction in a lease payment. So we're not paying for an idle vehicle. And that's kind of standard part of their contract. And then at the end of the contract, we would be able to purchase the charging infrastructure at fair market value. We need to work out what exactly that would be. But they obviously don't want to uninstall something that's already been installed, so the price would be pretty reasonable. A couple context points, like if we were to purchase an electric bus outright, it would be $375,000 to $400,000. The electricity costs for the buses, based on current diesel prices, I did some modeling, and they're approximately 15 to 20% less with current diesel prices. So it's not necessarily a huge savings. If diesel prices come down a bit, it could be break even. And we're not necessarily, doing this for that reason. But I did want to point out that currently it would be a 15 to 20% savings. So if you look at the 28.6 per year for 10 years, not factoring the additional 3%, because I can't do that math quickly in my head, but 286,000, and it's spread out over 10 years. If you look at it in kind of present value terms, we're basically getting the buses for about 60% of 70% of the price of the vehicles, and we're getting infrastructure thrown in, and we're getting support from a third-party vendor, and we're getting maintenance included. I don't know that we're going to find a better deal to do something sustainable with buses like this, unless we get, unless there's another federal grant. So I wanted to kind of share this. I'm not asking for a vote tonight, but I just wanted to get, before we pursued it, next steps might include, having legal counsel review the contract. I still have a couple points I need to iron out with them, but we thought, we're at a point where we have enough information to share kind of the framework for what the deal would look like, and wanted to hear what the committee thought about it.
Thank you, Bob. Just a question I have. Have we ever gone with lightly used buses before? And what does 20,000 miles equate to? Like how many, is that a school year? Is that half a school year? How much do we normally put on a bus in a year?
About a school year, based on some numbers that the transportation director gave me. So I'd say about a school year. The risk is managed on their length of life by the fact that if they are not operational, we're not paying. There's a penalty clause built in where the lease payment reduces. So that mitigates the risk significantly.
Okay. A hand's kind of popped up I'm not sure who was first. I'm going to just go in the list as I see it. So I'm not trying to circumnavigate anyone, but Michael, it looks like you're first in the list, so I'll have you go first.
Thanks. So we were initially looking at 5 buses, and now 2 buses. What does that do for a scheme in terms of us electrifying our entire fleet? And does that work? Second part of the question, does this diesel buses lower cost up front, longer cost over time, electricism, bigger costs up front, and we've got that decreased by this plan, and it will sort of moderate over time. Does having to pay for the buyback, the infrastructure, make any difference? Those are 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if I completely followed all of the second one. I'll answer the pieces that I think I absorbed, and then just let me know if I missed anything. So what it does to our overall fleet is we currently have 3 buses, and I'd say the 2 Lion buses. Lion is out of business. One of the buses is used. One of the 2 Lion buses is still used. One of them is basically at end of life. I think it's 8 years old, and
It's 9 years old. Its original year was my first year.
yeah, so that one's close to end of life. So getting 2 in would effectively, when we drop down to 2, would get us back to 4. So it would enable us to grow a little bit. It also the arrangement would also have some flexibility in to work with them if they were to apply for a grant. We would partner with them to potentially get more vehicles, up to 5 total. So we have 2 now. So there is some flexibility to work with them to potentially get more, but that would be contingent on them on it being financially viable for them. They would need grant funds to do that. They're doing this. They're not making money on the deal they're offering us. They're trying to get their foot in the door, prove the model to us, and keep us interested in working with them as we go forward. In terms of the cost, these prices are more than a diesel bus, but less than an electric bus. Well, they are electric buses, but what we're paying is less than we would typically pay for an electric bus. We would pay about 100 and the prices are going up a little bit for the diesel too. So I'd say 185 or so for a diesel bus. This is 286. And this also includes maintenance. They're covering maintenance. And there's some guarantees on uptime, which we don't get with a diesel bus. So I'd say financially, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more than a diesel bus. But I think it's about as close as we're going to get right now. And then the buyout at the end, I still need to negotiate that. I put fair market value because I haven't worked out what that would be. And I don't know, I want it to be based on, I need them to explain to me, like, how long do these units last? How much do they cost? Like if they cost 20,000 and they last 12 years, I would expect them to just give them to us for free. If they last 20 years, it might be fair if we wanted to stop working with them that we do pay something. So I don't know enough about that yet to know what the deal will be. So what we both sides just agreed to now is we said fair market value and we talk about it more.
I think you pegged it at the end of the day. Your best judgment is this a plus for us or a question mark?
Okay.
Was that a question, Michael? Is this a plus or a question mark?
He pegged the answer. The synthesis of it, is this a plus for, would this, in his opinion, would it be a plus for us or a question mark? Clearly not a negative, plus or a question mark.
Yeah, I'd say if we want to be sustainable, this is as good as a deal as we're going to get right now, absent getting a free bus through a grant.
And Bob, I'll just add, we've tried really hard to access the grants on our own, and it's very difficult to do. So this would allow us a pathway to the grants, I think, more reliably.
All right, Tracy?
Okay, I was going to ask a question about the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure, but I think you could maybe look to Beverly. I know that Highland's done a lot of work with Beverly Public Schools, and they might have some information about what the charging would look like for fair market value. just an aside. I think this is a great opportunity for us. We've been working on this a lot since I go back to like July of 2023. We talked a lot about what's the total cost of ownership electric buses. We have lost numerous grants on them. And the reality of it is, a $400,000 bus plus the charging infrastructure is just, we can't afford to do that on our own. So I think it's exciting that they can help us with the infrastructure. I guess my question for CMLP would be, I know that, a few years ago, we need a new transformer. So that money was set aside, I think by town meeting of 2017 or 2019.
Mhm.
So does that need to be done first with the transformer before anything happens?
So CMLP used some of that money to put in a transformer for the Mass CEC grant. So we have another charger going in, a high-speed bidirectional charger. It's not part of this Highland contract, but it's through the Mass CEC grant, which is also going on at Knox Trail. And so CMLP used some of that 2017 money because they were putting in the trenching and the transformer, and they had to get approval to dig up the site because there's environmental issues there. So I think I had mentioned that in a previous meeting. So that's been done. That transformer, we believe, but CMLP will need to confirm to Highland, will have the capacity to add this additional charger to it. They built the conduit in so it can be added. And if not, there's the ability to install either upgrade the transformer or put in additional capacity, and Highland would actually have to pay for that with CMLP. We would not need to do that ourselves.
And do you know if that's still like a year lead time on a transformer, like just from a scheduling perspective? This isn't going to happen in the next 3 months. There is some work to be done, and then running it through legal that would have to be done in addition. So what do you think the timeline would look like for this?
So the transformer is already in.
Okay.
But if it needs an additional one or an upgrade, I don't know what the lead time is. I do know that CMLP had a transformer, and they used it for this purpose. So I don't know if they have inventory or not.
Okay.
But this contract would not have a start date until the infrastructure is in place. Like the deal with Highland would have an effective date when the buses are delivered and when the electrical infrastructure is in place and operational. So we would sort those things out, so we're not paying if we can't charge the buses and run the buses.
Okay, thank you.
Bob's been on multiple meetings with many, many people from the current upgrades that are going on with CMLP and all those vendors. Highland's been on those calls already. There's a lot of organization already happening because we didn't want to bring you a proposal that wasn't impossible or that the two plans wouldn't complement each other. So I'm actually hopeful we're getting closer to executing on this. We've been at this for 6 months now, so I think we're honing in on it, which is why we wanted to bring it tonight.
I do feel like this is the closest we've been. I think
It
in
definitely
some
is.
of the other grants, it's like, if we can get another district to partner with us
Yeah.
and if we qualify, like this feels like the closest we've been. So thank you.
And I think
for
it
all the
sets
work
up
on
a
that.
relationship for the future, which seems also valuable.
All right. Andrew?
Yeah, just really quickly, I guess the buses are used, right? They have 20,000 miles, which is a year or two, as you said, Brian. So Bob, do we know why they're used? Like, are they unreliable? Do they don't have the range, or because it's a lot of money for people to invest in electric buses because of the infrastructure we just talked about it. So it's odd to me that there'd be two available buses lightly used without any sort of backstory. And you might probably don't know that the origin of those two buses, but I guess my actual question is, Bob, you managed a fleet, and through negotiations of our mechanics and our bus drivers, I just know how challenging that is. So there's a big difference between them covering a day or two of downtime, which reduces our payment trivially, versus you and your team having to actually get kids to school with a bus being down. So my precise question is, like, you're good with this?
So I did ask that exact question about why the vehicle's available. That was a question our transportation team had too. The company, it's a school district in Michigan, so not too different a climate that does not have the infrastructure to make this work. I don't. So they basically got buses and weren't able to maintain it, weren't able to keep up with the infrastructure. So that's the information that was relayed to us. And in terms of us being good, am I good with this? I'm pretty confident that I am in support of this. We would want to see the buses and inspect them. And we would say no if the buses weren't viable. So there are things that we will put in the contract. Like we would have to accept the buses. We would still need legal to review the contract. But I don't think the substance of this will change. I think all the pricing is going to be the same. So there's some additional due diligence to do, but I wanted to bring it to you now because we have the framework of what the agreement will look like. And then, the details of, okay, we need to see what the buses are. We need to make sure we're okay with them. It's actually a plus that they're Thomas instead of IC, which was what they were doing before, because our lead mechanic is, he comes from Thomas, and he's familiar with Thomas vehicles and he has a relationship with the Thomas vendors. So yeah, I think this can work.
Great. Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you. Thanks, Bob, for doing all the work on this. This is definitely a really attractive offer. I just have 3 questions. Can you tell me how many buses are currently in the fleet?
About 35 approximately. There might be some that need to be retired that don't go on the road, but about 35.
Okay. And are they stored outside? Like in a
Yeah, they're
parking-
stored outside at the bus depot in Acton.
Okay. And then, so maybe 4 questions. Do you know these 2 particular buses? I was researching these buses earlier, and it looks like they come with an option of a fuel-fired heater. And my question, I'm asking just because I don't know if it'll affect like the decarbonization or if we'll get credit for it being environmentally friendly if they do have that fuel-fired heater. Do you know if they have that or not?
I don't think they do, but I can confirm that.
And then I saw that there were 2 different ranges. There's 2 different models with different ranges. One was 133 miles and the other was 200 plus. Do you know what the range on these buses?
I think it's on the lower. I don't think it's the 200 plus, but
Okay.
Our bus routes typically would do on our core routes less, say maybe 100 miles a day, because they do drive from Acton. We wouldn't use these on the Boston routes, I can tell you that, because it's a little bit more of a ride. And then within town. So anyways, it's about 100 miles a day is the estimate from our transportation director. And if then he did trips at night, it might be more. So I mean, they would have the capacity and they would also have the ability to charge after they came back.
Yeah, the high-speed charger is going to be game changing and turning the bus
Yeah.
on.
So
And even the 100 miles would be sufficient. I'm curious because I was looking at the decarbonization roadmap and it looks like by 2040 they want to be at 82%. And I know that's not law, that's just like a guideline. But just kind of trying to take all this into consideration when it comes to busing in general.
They want to be 82% of the fleet.
Yeah, by
decarbonized.
2040.
Yeah.
So that's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Michelle. Bob, do you have I want to move us along because we've kind of doubled our allotted time already on this topic. Do you have what you need from us at this point, or?
I do. That feedback, I'm just going to characterize what I heard as general support of this with certain questions, and I take those questions under advisement. When I do come back with the contract, I'll be prepared to address any of those questions.
Yeah, I just want to shout out that I think my comfort anyway, and I think Highland's comfort comes with our expertise in this. We were first in the country to have a bus 10 years ago. And part of why these other districts are giving up grant money or turning buses in, like it's not as easy as it sounds, to manage the electric, and we're really used to all the things you ask questions about, we're really used to. So I think for us, it's really just making sure we sustain the fleet and then try to grow it. So thanks for your consideration.
Excellent. Thanks for the work here, Bob. All right, moving on. Next, we've got 10 minutes to do a final review of our school committee goals. As a reminder, we looked at these in November as well as in February. Do I have permission to share? Looks like I do. I'm happy to just go ahead and pull these up so that we can take a look at them. Okay. So first one, just in terms of the budget, I did pre-fill these first two as on track just because they were done and they were done a while ago. I personally feel
Can you
that
make them a little larger, hard to see?
is that better, Michael? Cool. I do think in terms of presenting clear community accessible budgets, we were also successful there, but I didn't want to make that determination for the committee.
I feel like where to.
Are we good with on track here?
Agreed.
Okay. I'm not trying to rush us, but I will just move it along unless I hear anything. Community and communication and community engagement. When we looked at these in February, the first two were on track, and piloting new two-way communication was off track. Though we did have all of our community coffees after the February conversation. So I just want to get a sense from people in terms of on track, off track on this one as we wrap things up.
I just had a few more thoughts on that and the two-way communication. You know, when I was reflecting back on our goals, we do have monthly PTG presidents meetings with all of the PTG presidents from the preschool, all three elementary schools, the middle school, the high school in Carlisle. So we do get a lot of feedback. I go to those meetings, and we certainly try and incorporate that feedback. So Lori and I are at those meetings where that can happen. The chairs breakfast, there's a lot of back and forth between chairs and communications that happens. And then I was also thinking about different groups that we liaise with. There is opportunity, like I know, Michael, you liaise with the DEI Commission. There's some back and forth there, that gets passed back and forth to the school committee. I'm on land use working group. So I do think that we have more than we think in two-way communication. I think our coffees were definitely successful this year. So I feel as though we're on track with that. We did do a couple of podcasts too. I know I did one in Concord, and Brian, you did the one in Carlisle. So when I look at that, I feel better about it now in June than maybe we did in February.
Does anyone disagree with any of these being on track as we wrap up the year?
I have a problem with them. I think that I know from the communities that I hear from that in terms of our two-way communication, while we did get them started, we talked about them in September, but didn't get them off the ground until the end of the year. When we canvassed in our meetings, most of you said you had a very, Sandeep, Andrew, you had a low outcome. Tracy in Boston, you had, Aisha and Michelle, at least what you told us of the meetings, that we had a low outcome. It was only Carrie and I that had a big outcome, but events at the end of in the last 6 weeks of the school year, I think it's hard to say that we are on track in that, in terms of even under the communication, community engagement goals, and trying to strengthen them on issues of anti-Semitism, bias, and hate in the community. I think we were actually fairly weak on that. As recently as 2 weeks ago, we got a request from a sister municipal body for a letter of support for the Black Heritage Trail markers, and that won't even come to us as an agenda item. How does that improve our connection? How does it improve or even speak to our goals of addressing hate in all its forms, anti-Semitism and bias, if we can't even talk about the issue? we've had this problem throughout the year. You suggest that when we want to talk about issues of bias and hate, all I have to do is ask. Tracy and Brian, you know, I asked you from July whether we could talk about the ADL complaint that we just received, and most of the committee, almost half of the committee, was new at that time. You told me no. It wasn't until October. That we eventually talked about it. I would also say that we did not meet from July for 3 weeks, and we met only on Zoom, and did not. We listened, but did not. We did listen, but did not engage. We didn't start to talk about these issues until October, and then Michelle reminded us that she represents communities that feel unseen and unheard. But when I asked if we were going to talk about these issues, Andrew, you looked at me and said, I'm not hearing about this from anybody else in the committee. I'm not hearing for change from anybody else in the committee, when Michelle had just attested to that fact. So I'm not seeing that we're on track, certainly for bullet 3. And I don't see that there's a strong reason for say that we're on track for this whole section, because there's so many things that we need to do that we have yet to. We haven't looked at even the way that we communicate with each other. So I think that if anything, this calls for us to consider doing better.
Okay. Thank you for that, Michael. Sandeep, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah. So I do think the second one is on track. The third one, the way I read it, we really pilot 2 new forms of I guess two-way communication. I think just the way that is written, we've tried, we've taken a step forward, but I don't think we've met the mark on the third goal. The first one is, in my mind, a little interesting, because I do think we've done better, but I don't know if we have any metrics to kind of track that. And so I don't know. I feel like we have, but I don't think I can show any data to kind of know for sure.
Thank you for that, Andrew.
I thought like the things we've done to bolster the district bulletin have been really helpful. I've got a lot of parent feedback that they understand what's going on across the district. So I think, Lori's team has done a really good job on that. I agree we're on track with the second one, deepen relationships. And then I agree with Sandeep and other feedback that we're probably off track on piloting 2-way communications, whereas we only did the podcasts. So on track, off track.
Okay. Aisha?
So I think that I wouldn't say we're on track. I think we have room for improvement for communication overall, just even like Michael said, just within this board, we have a lot of room for improvement. But I look forward to, next year just being better, this committee being more professional, and the communication being a little bit better. I think we could do a little bit better. I think that we have gotten better, but I think and I don't really know how to those ways to get better, but I think that we can work on it, especially with the communication with the Boston community. I think we can work on different ways to communicate, because, and it's no one's fault, just the ways that we're doing it now. I don't know if we're reaching all the parents, so maybe just different ways that we can look to engage with them.
Yeah. No, I hear it, and I agree with what so many of you have said, just in terms of there's always rooms for improvement in terms of communication. I know I've been given a lot of thought to that just in the last few weeks on a whole variety of topics. So was there anyone else who wanted to make a comment related to these? So I think from what I heard, just in terms of relationships with Select Board and FinCom, people felt we were on track, though. I don't know that we've checked in. I know on the Carlisle side, yes, but I don't know if we can speak to the Concord side. And it sounds like we feel overall off track on the last one. And probably as much as I've said off track or on track, it seems to be a mixed bag on the first one as well. So um, and I think this
And
needs to
and
continue to be a focus point.
I think.
and
Oh,
Brian, I might add, on track doesn't mean we're done, right?
Of
It's
course.
we're head. Yeah, so we're heading in the right direction. I don't think we're where we need to be on first, but yeah, maybe on track isn't bad.
Yeah, and to that point, and thinking also just in terms of, where to go to get information and news, I do think this is how I personally would view it. Again, committing to we've got to look at this further next year and as we think about further goal setting.
And
you could make on track. Oh, I'm sorry, Tracy.
sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
You'd make on track orange, although Julie Viola would not be happy, but you could make on track orange. The first one.
I do think the green versus red is a good measuring system. Tracy?
Just, in terms of communication, I think since I've been on this committee, there are always communication goals. We can always better communicate. I think there's always a challenge because people like things all different ways. Some people want an email, some people want it on Instagram, some people want a text. And so I do think that some of that communication, everyone's going to communicate differently. I think we've done some good work with the select board and the finance committees, just in terms of the budget and really, to keep doing what we did last year, even in terms of meeting over the summer, at the end of the summer meeting with finance committee. I think that was hugely helpful. So I do think we have made some improvements, and I do think as a committee, we can always improve our communication. One thing that's not noted in here, and it's not two-way communication, but it's, pushing out story of the schools, the change to our website where we have all of those news stories that are also on the website. So just to keep reminding the community that that website is live. And so there are always things added on there. I think that, I'm just watching Q5 unroll at our high school right now, which is amazing. And I hope that the community gets all the information about that. Like there are very few public schools that are doing anything that innovative towards the end of the school year. And I think, getting that out to the community would be helpful. So I think we always have room to improve. And my guess is we're going to have a communication goal for next year also.
Yes, I did jot that down. I'm going to move us along. Policy oversight. Sorry, I can't get all of this onto one screen. But ensure district policies are current, inclusive, and responsive to emerging student and community needs. So when we looked at this last time, we had said off track, on track, off track.
I'm going to go back to the policy tracker, which is I think this is the lowest hanging fruit at the bottom. We don't have a publicly accessible policy tracker. What we do have is in our yearly schedule, I've put all the policies, all the MASC updates that are on there, that's viewable to all of us. And we're kind of going through all those, but I'm not really sure what a policy tracker online gets us. But those are just my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Michael?
I guess I'd still, perhaps something we should talk about for our next set of goals is tracking how we communicate and talk with each other, but we moved on before I got to make that comment. That's something I certainly think we should talk about, because we haven't done well there either.
I'm making a note of that, Michael. Did you have anything about policy, though? I did capture that. No, okay.
Maybe this is where the MASC can help us a little bit on policies. I mean, I do think that we have our policy manual was brought up to date 2 years ago, and now we're just kind of ticking through the updates. So we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but maybe we can bring that, Brian, to like the chairs roundtable and see what other districts are doing to kind of clean up where we're at with this.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one, just in terms of on track and off track?
I think it's not my goal. I'll start with that. There are different approaches that I've seen over the years. I think maybe you're struggling with what is your approach. Is it that every 3 to 5 years you go through the entire book and in the meantime you just do what you're doing now? Or are you trying to do a section of the book every year? Like, I think we need to memorialize the strategy and you'll feel less unsettled. So maybe that's the first goal of the fall.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lori. Like for Carlisle, our goal, for example, is we touch a third of the policies every year so that over the course of 3 years, we've touched all of them and we just can very easily.
I think we were so relieved to finally
get
get through the whole book that we are exhaling, but we all need to come up with what the long-term strategy.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So, I mean, maybe I know we want to do green and red and to just get through this. I do think in the middle section we are on track. The top section, we have identified, reviewed all our major policy areas for alignment. We're doing some policies tonight. I do think that policy update tracker, maybe we look towards that as establishing a way to review our policies. I mean, maybe that's our goal for next year is like let's put it in writing now that it's done. We're doing the updates now. I think we have to be more like Carlisle, Brian, where we, do a third, or make a commitment to something broader.
Yeah. Okay. I've made a note as well, some kind of policy goal for next year. The superintendent evaluation, this one was on track because it was completed in September. We've had Lori's updates over the course of the year. We also have the Sunday emails, which I love. And when I've told others that we get those from you, they are shocked. So I appreciate that level of detail. And then in the last couple, we have said on track as well for monitoring student achievement data, but I'll open it up for discussion.
I definitely think it's.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Sandeep.
I was going to say, I think it's on track on the last one. I'm not sure. Do we do it 3 times? That's my only question. I know we've gotten updates.
We also covered it in meetings 3 times. So.
Excellent. Then no reservations.
Okay.
And I guess, Sandeep, are you done? Or do you have something else? Sorry. Done. Okay. I guess, I have some notes from, just in my prep. When Lori sends her emails, her standards are on there every single week. And I think this is more for the public to hear what we are doing for evaluation. Standard 1 on instructional leadership, Standard 2, management operations, Standard 3, family and community engagement, and Standard 4, professional culture. So our weekly updates are all categorized based on those standards. And then this week, I had a few minutes to look through the articles that Lori sent. So she has 40 weeks of professional articles that get sent to the staff that we also had access to, which I think is really important. I think it's important on the work that we do as a school committee to really look and see what our teachers are doing. And I just pulled out a couple of the themes, assessment, reading, deeper learning, AI, tech, scaffolding, student voice, high dosage tutoring, promoting equity. And so there are 40 weeks of articles that really, when you look at them, are tied to Lori's goals. They're also tied to the strategic plan. So I do think that we're constantly in an evaluation cycle of the superintendent. I know that we evaluate her every other year, but I do feel like we have so much evidence that we're completely on track here.
Okay. Thank you. Any final feedback just in terms of this past year's goals? Otherwise, we do need to do goal setting for the year ahead. I think last year the chairs took the first pass at setting the goals, and then we discussed them if memory serves. And I just wanted to check in with people. Do we want to take a similar approach? Do we want to have a time where we're sort of brainstorming more upfront together? Michael?
If memory serves, when we had our goals meeting was in August last year with establishing goals with our regional representative and the executive director of Mask. And again, if memory serves, I thought that they were recommending that we get to it earlier rather than at that point, because if we can recall that we did both the goals and our protocols, and the academic year was starting with in like 10 days. And so that's what I recall from that meeting. So yeah, I think we should probably use the same paradigm, but possibly get to it a bit earlier.
Okay. Aisha?
Sorry. Sorry. I'm all for. I think we could. I'm for us doing it together. Just because this past year we've had just the chairs doing it and then us discussing it. Maybe we do it together so we have a more equitable outcome where all voices are heard. The two chairs that we had didn't listen to certain people on the committee, so I think we should do it together just so we're in a better place next year.
Okay. Tracy?
Yeah, I think that it was helpful when we had our workshop in August to really do goals and protocols. And I guess maybe I suggest, I think we had a newer committee last year, which is why we spent a lot of time on the protocols. Protocols aren't something that you have to really, rewrite every single year. I think that, maybe just some quick tweaking. And so more of the focus for that first meeting could just be on our goals. It might be helpful if you and Sandeep identify goal areas and then we all have input into it. I think, just going through this process of this past year, you can kind of see what some of them might be. So maybe to give us a starting point for us to add to, that might be helpful, but maybe the protocols discussion doesn't have to be as lengthy. I mean, some committees keep the same protocols year after year after year. So just a thought as to how to spend more time on goals and less time on protocols.
Okay, thank you for that. This feedback is very helpful, and like I said, even during this, I've been jotting down sort of bigger bucket themes that we might want to include. So why don't I take it as an action to connect with Sandeep, talk through a framework of how we will work through this, and then we'll get things moving along accordingly. But thank you everyone for walking through. Going to move on then to our second reading of policies. So these are policies JICK, AC, and ACR. We reviewed these back in May. I think it was May, or was it June? Yeah, May. These are the policies that the Department of Justice made recommendations in terms of how we updated the language. And they were updated in coordination with our attorney, Ms. Paige Tobin. And I know we, in our conversation in May, a number of us had concerns about the recommended language, but we're also, mindful of the immediate compliance. So I would like to commit that we will look at these as we come back again. In August and in September, but just want to see, based on what we have in front of us, are there any further comments on this version of the three policies?
No, just thanks, Brian. I think we're all in agreement. We want to keep working on these, and a vote tonight allows us to submit what we need to, and then we'll come back to it right away at the beginning of the year.
I guess I have some concerns. I think Sandeep, you had voiced some concerns uh, in that May meeting. Um, if we agree to these now, when I guess JICK and ACR are going to go into the handbook, correct?
No, they just get posted as your voted policy, but you can
Mhm.
bring them back in August and revise them by September. So it really, the one that goes into the handbook, which is a link, so the handbook needs to just reflect ACR.
ACR.
Mhm. But you can also, like, we can adjust all that in the August, September timeline too. We're just trying to get a version that matches what the DOJ agreement said. So
And
I
when
think,
we,
Michael, we all agree. We're just trying to do it in two steps, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I've said my piece on it.
And I have been saying August or September only because coming back in August, I just don't know what else may need attention. So just want that flexibility in agenda setting. But um, my
My thought
recommendation is August
process,
or September.
yeah, I agree with you, Brian. And my thought process was to use the quieter, knock on wood, quieter July to look at what I heard for concerns and see if we could get some language added to this so that you have something to reflect on in August or September rather than straight up starting as a group. So I'm committing to working on it even in July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I make a motion? And then if there's further discussion, I move to approve policy JICK, ACR, AC, and policy ACR.
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, and thank you for everyone who shared viewpoints, concerns, and like I said, August or September as we come back, we'll continue the dialogue here. All right, roll call vote, please.
For check aye.
For both.
Kelleher, aye.
For both.
Oh, for region.
Morano, aye for both.
Bishardi, aye for both.
Watterson, aye for region.
Williams, aye for both.
Okay, thank you. We now have 4 new policies where this is our first reading. It's JLCD, Administration of Medication to Students, JLCDC, Self-Administration and Self-Carry of Medication, JKAA, Timeout, Seclusion, and Restraint of Students, and KBG, Parent Advisory Council. Lori, thank you for pulling the first one up. Is there anything in there's a there are a lot of edits in this one. Anything in particular you want to talk through just in terms of
All of these except the last one are related to regulation changes that have happened and need to be in place by the start of school. So your first read is now with the hope to vote it in that August meeting. You'll see that the medication delegation regulations are changing fairly significantly. The short version is the nurses are going to be able to train more broadly and delegate medication administration for certain types of medications beyond what they've been able to do, which up till now has been pretty much EpiPens. So you can read this in more detail. It's very reflective of the regulation. There's really not much else to consider. That this is the MASC's recommended version.
Question, in our system, who's the medication program manager?
So we need to work through some of these titles that are here.
Yeah.
Which is one of the summer projects. I wanted to get this in front of you, and we have to sort through all these aspects of compliance that we need to identify.
Yeah, I looked at the mask documentation, all the different varieties of them, and it wasn't clear who that was in our district. So
yes, we're working on that. Good question. So I will have all that plan made for you in August, when it comes back to you.
Lori, are you going to keep that language medication program manager, or is there going to be, just because it's policy, so it's going to be broader, and then you'll let us know who it is, or
The medication program manager is what's in the regulations, so we have to keep it.
keep it? Okay.
And we have to define it, to Michael's point. Who is that? And Lisa Koski, the lead district-wide nurse, is my go-to on this right now. It could be that it's her, but I want to just vet a little more before we firm that up.
So the language in this policy will stay the same, but you'll identify the people and let us know.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? All right. Do you want to talk about the next one, Lori?
Sure. This is a second piece to this where we need to put in a self-administration and self-carry medication policy, because we do this with the oldest kids. Most of what's here is already in place. This is the policy that will provide oversight, more specifically to how kids can self-administer. So it goes along with the one before. I don't see us doing with the youngest kids, obviously, but the high school kids pretty much, most of them are in this category.
Okay.
Give or take certain situations.
All right. I don't see anyone with hands up with questions, so why don't we talk about the third one?
Okay, on to another regulation change. The list is really growing coming out of the legislation and legislator and DESE. This is only a portion. The graduation requirements are probably about to be put out by the governor any minute. That's going to be a whole nother bundle. Like we're just trying to keep up. Timeout, seclusion, and physical restraint. The part that's new is the timeout and seclusion component. Angel's been taking lead on this very, very extensively. Already started to do training across the buildings. She's met with CPAC at least once to go through the changes. And really, this is a limit on timeout and seclusion. The direction is to use other de-escalation strategies so that kids are not confined. Obviously, when we do it, it's only for a safety reason. So we're vetting what that is and how we get to a place where we can avoid it. It's pretty thorough here. And then this is a revision to the actual restraint policy we have now, which you'll see starts partway through. So there's a lot still. Angel's going to be in ongoing communication with the buildings as we open school. We have 3 years to actually implement this, which is unusual, but we're on our way. We also have one of our special ed administrators is being trained through a program at Case Collaborative to train the trainer and come back and do more training. Really, it's, how big of a toolkit can we get in de-escalation to avoid situations? So that's the work. Again, Angel's been our lead there and will continue to be.
Any questions on this one? All right, and then the last one related to parent advisory councils.
Yeah, let me switch. This is a Word document. This is another MASC update. And my understanding of this is they continue to try to outline that parent advisory councils, CPAC most particularly, and English language parent advisory councils, which we have less of, are not subject to open meeting law. And but I think they're finding, and it's really interesting, our CPAC had this conversation when I was on with them last week. Okay, if they don't have open meeting law, what are they guiding themselves by? They have bylaws, but how are they managing transparency and communication? I know our CPAC wants to continue that discussion. So.
And this is the last of the MASC updates for the year that we had on there.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian and I, we had a little interesting conversation at the chairs roundtable over CPACs too. So I think a lot of people are talking about how CPACs are governing and running and all of that. So it's good to have
Yeah.
that guidance.
No, for sure. All right. And any final questions or comments on any of these before we revisit them in August? All right, Lori, thank you for stepping us through.
You're welcome.
School committee meeting calendar. Do you want to pull that up? Do you want me to pull it up?
I don't have that as handy as I had the other
I
things.
have it. Okay, I've got it
Okay,
right
go
here. Give me a
ahead.
sec. It's going to be tiny, and I know you all have it in your packet, so you can always refer to that document as well. I mean, yeah, it's tiny even for me. So one thing, just in terms of the first meeting date, I did poll everyone, and August 26th, closer to the start of the school year, was the preferred date. So we will go with that moving forward. Did anyone have any concerns about any of the other dates?
The only one that came up on my end since you saw this, because of the time, this is a Concord School Committee piece, because of assuming we still go back and forth, the timing of DC next year, potentially, which you haven't approved, but they've started to plan, might put a concert on that May 26th date at the middle school. So they've been really good about flagging conflicts like that for us and letting us know. I don't know if that demands a change to what's here. I just wanted to name that they had highlighted that for me.
Okay. The only other potential conflict that I saw that we might have to work out is in Carlisle, and Lynette, you can help me out here.
Yeah.
Carlisle is the second Wednesday of the month, and a lot of these are the first Wednesday, but then I know why September is, and that's not an issue. And I suspect I know why January
It's that
is.
all school concert that we keep trying to
That's
work
right.
on.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking it was just coming back from New Year's,
No,
but I
it's
wondered,
that concert that pulls from, I think, from all the schools, including Carlisle.
including Carlisle. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I was just wondering February, March, and May, why we're on the second Wednesday as opposed to the first, if there were any. And we can flip flop in Carlisle pretty easily, but
yeah.
I just didn't know if there was a reason.
This is just a first draft, so you can move it around as you would like.
I'm okay with moving the first meeting in February to the third.
If we could do 3 Feb, 3 March, and
Yeah.
May, I think that alleviates a lot of the conflicts.
Yeah, it's February, March, May, and what's the June meeting? And June. That's all the same night as Carlisle.
The June 2nd, though, I would caution it'll be just 1 week after the May.
I think that's what drove some of this shifting.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we're doing May 5th, we could also do May 19th, and then we'd be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And then could we do June 2nd?
Yeah, and we could do June 2nd.
In March, I want to be sure I give these to Aaron correctly, if you don't mind.
Yeah, if we could do March 3rd and Feb 3rd.
Yep. Okay. So she's on vacation until Monday, and we'll revise this for you.
No, thank you, everyone, because it just I hate to move to a different day of the week, and then Lynette and I have double headers, and we're not talking about our spouses.
That just gets confusing.
Yeah. All right.
That's right on that.
I think we're good there. School committee liaison assignments is the next item. As I said, as I shared these out, I did my best to take into account requests, look at what people had done previously. I doubled and triple checked. I didn't hear from anybody that there was any glaring error in terms of any of the assignments. but I'll just ask, and I don't know if it's worth me sharing the screen or not, just because it is a lot of text and tiny, but did anybody have any comments just in terms of assignments?
I just had one to bring up. I don't think I saw Concord United on there. And Michael and I have been on it this year with Lori. And I think that, and Michael, will you correct me if I'm wrong? At the last meeting, we discussed the chair or their designee is how the language was going to go.
Yes. And at the last DI commission meeting, Andre Fonserrato was talking about, I guess the next meeting is going to be in August. It'll be at the police headquarters. Rotating leadership. She was talking about that. That'll come up, I guess, at the next meeting.
So I think that it could be the chair or their designee. I think the goal was to have consistency. So, you and Sandeep, if you want to think about that, the meetings are typically during the day.
Okay.
It's not Michael, is there a day of the week that they've been or no?
So
Monday,
Tracy or Michael,
the second Monday.
Could you shed some light on Concord United versus the DI Commission and
Sure. So
what's happening there?
okay, sorry. So Concord United, so we had started, oh my gosh, we had started like in the fall meeting with the DEI Commission, and it was Michael and I, Lori, Andrew Niamici, and the DEI Commission chairs. So that started in the fall. And then it kind of morphed into a townwide leadership committee that maybe I'm going to get the dates wrong. Michael and Lori, you can help me. I think maybe around like February. But it includes the police, the
Yes.
select board, the town manager, Lori, Andrew Niamici, school committee representation. So it's to meet, kind of once a month. So it's up to you. I mean, I'm happy to continue, but I'm also happy if one of you wants to continue, that's fine with me. Like if Sandeep or Brian, if you say I really want to do it, great.
If you're happy to continue, I personally am comfortable with that. And Michael, you're good
I'm
to
too.
continue.
Yeah, Michael's there as DI liaison,
The
which
DEI
Okay.
liaison, right?
continuing.
But it can be the chair or their designee. So if there's any point that I'm happy to, for one of you to do it.
Okay.
So again, this is a select board initiative, or is it just something organic?
It was a DEI commission initiative, I believe, that was ascribed to by, I guess, the chief of police, town manager, and I guess the idea was to have municipal leaders and broad community representation on board to what might have been inspired by looking at the issues that we were having, also to look prospectively at how we can model best for our community, and that's I think that's fair. That's the intent that DEI and police chief and the select board brought to it over through our conversations. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's become a nice spoke to the conversation, so we all get to hear what each other's doing in a setting where we're not doing 10 other things at once.
Yeah. Okay. I made the adjustment to the sheet. Anything else for liaison assignments? And Tracy, remind me, do we vote on these or?
I think we can vote on them. I can't recall if we voted on them last year. And the only other thing that I had brought to you, Brian, earlier is we have 2 other union negotiations for next year too. So we have 4 bargaining units next year to
Okay.
negotiate with. So we don't have anyone assigned there, but those will likely happen towards the end of the school year. So maybe let the year, I think your thought was to let the year go
My
on.
thought is, yeah, let's get closer to the time and then we'll establish it based on what everyone has going on.
Yep.
I'll just note, because we're in the thick of it this spring, anyone who's not on a teacher bargaining unit is going to probably have to get tapped because there's not enough of us to Get it all
Okay.
done.
I mean, it's been, I will just say it's been a lot this spring.
Yeah,
and,
I think it's all hands on deck next year with the bargaining.
yeah.
Okay. Are we good on this? Do we want to vote on them? Or
I
just
move to approve the liaison list for 2026, 2027.
Second.
any final discussion? Roll call.
Percheck, aye.
Kelleher, aye.
Morano, aye, sorry.
Shardy, aye.
Watterson, aye.
Williams, aye.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Looking
Thank
forward
you,
to
Brian. Thank
hear
you for
on
doing
that.
that.
And thank you for
That's a lot of work.
Sandeep was helping as well. So I appreciate that. Okay. Just making sure I'm not losing track of where we are. CPS CCRSD Maintenance Union Agreement for 26-29. We need to vote on this.
Yeah, I could just give a high level. We were able to reach a tentative agreement with them last week, much thanks to, and they should speak more than me, Sandeep and Lynette. It's a slow, progressive contract to help them be on par with the town of Concord maintenance staff. I think that's the short version. But we're really grateful. You should speak more than I would. It was a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I don't know. It was fun. It was an easy one for me to start with, I guess. So they were very nice.
They're a great
Yeah,
group.
it was great. They do great work, and obviously Bob led the charge with working on behalf of the district. So thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
And Kara, she was part of it too. She's not in this meeting, but
true. It's true.
definitely helped with the bargaining.
Kara's online. She's watching online. So thank you to Kara.
Thank you, Kara.
I think some of us have spent a lot of time with Kara, Bob, and Lori over the past 2 days. So thank you for your work on all of the negotiations.
Yes. All right. Does someone want to make a motion to approve the maintenance union agreement?
I move to approve the maintenance union agreement for 2026 through 2029.
Second.
Any final discussion? Except to say thank you to everyone. And as a reminder, we need to vote as either both or for region for this one.
Percheck, aye for both. Thanks for the reminder.
Kelleher, aye for region.
Morano, aye for both.
Charity, aye for both.
Watterson, aye for region.
Williams, aye for both.
Great, thank you. We are going to table discussion item J for the administrative assistance unit agreement because we're not ready, and we will be talking a little bit more about that in executive session tonight. So that moves us on to the handbook. We did look at the handbook in our meeting in May, but since that time we did receive the CCHS appendix, which has different guidelines that are specific to CCHS. Dr. Hunter, I don't know if there's anything you want to elaborate on there.
No, I mean, you can see it's a range of topics. CCHS just found the other schools have things like this, but the website seemed to be sufficient. With CCHS, I think much because of the independence of the students, we needed to put some things that had been in the individual handbook back in as an appendix for easy reference for students and families as CCHS operates. So we'd appreciate your consideration to make that an appendix to the book you looked at last time.
Great.
Bringing one comment on there, I think on page 4 of the appendix, there is some gendered language. Maybe just fix that. Other than that, there was no issues.
Oh, thanks. Do you mind sending me an email on that, Sandeep?
Yeah.
I think Brian Miller has to change it. I don't know if I can.
I also have a concern more for the handbook than for the appendix. I look back to 2023, I guess we approved our MECO representatives in August of 22, and we have the school committees of all those years in the front pages in the of all the handbooks. Is there a reason we don't have our MECO reps listed?
No, that's a great catch. Nope, it just didn't happen. So we will put that in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Right there on page 2 with all of you.
Yeah, with all, yeah.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Michael.
Good call out, Michael. Thank you.
Yep.
If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to approve the handbook and appendix with the modifications we just discussed.
I move to approve the 2026-27 student handbook, the CCHS appendix with the previously described edits.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
This is one handbook, right? So it's just approval for Jen. Good. Well, anyway, her check I for both, just in case.
Kelleher, I for region, just in case.
Morano, I for both.
30 I for both.
Watterson, I for region.
Williams, I for both.
I think when in doubt, append the both in region, and I almost said both that time, just following everybody else's lead.
Yep.
Okay. Our last discussion item, climate and culture framework for 26-27. This is something that I did want to put on, and this, Michael has brought this up a few times, just how in the 26-27 academic year, especially, the work of the bias and hate reporting group is going to be wrapped up. How might we continue some of the conversations around the climate and culture within our schools? We have 15 minutes on the agenda. I don't expect us to solve exactly how we want to go forward in 15 minutes. And, potentially this is a goal for the upcoming year, just in terms of how we might create a framework that we can use. Things that I'm just thinking of is, one, we want to make sure we're staying in our lane as a school committee. I'm also thinking about the data points that we might want, and also, what types of topics, beyond bias and hate might be included here. But I think this is just a chance to have a little bit of a brainstorm session and see if there's, what we might want to do moving forward. And Sandeep, I know you have some thoughts on this as well, so I might give you a chance to.
So I think I shared this during the last meeting, right? I think having this on the on a review that we do a couple of 3 times a year makes a lot of sense to me. Say perhaps in the beginning of the year we can assess where we are, some progress in the middle, and my machine wants to update, so I'm going to say no. Sorry. Right. Yeah. So I think evaluating where we are at specific intervals makes a lot of sense to me. I shared last time. I think I'm fundamentally opposed to doing this every meeting, primarily because I think if you just do track every incident on its own, if you are putting it on every agenda, then it just becomes something that is routine, and the updates get thin. People tune out, and that's kind of the opposite of taking stuff like this seriously. So I do think we need to take it seriously, and having it reviewed, say, 3 times a year is what makes a lot of sense to me.
I guess I would suggest that, particularly in view of the things that had happened in the past, that there's a reason to track it and to track it on a regular basis. I think not just looking at incidents, but looking at climate is what's important. There's several things we could use to gauge that. We already have our panorama data. We have our youth risk behavior survey, which comes out every 2 years. We also have a great tool in our student affinity groups. There's a way to poll them through their advisors and get a feel for what the climate is through the course of a year. Now, certainly it's going to be peaked by events, and I don't think we can predict when they're going to occur, but we should certainly use them and the trends that we see in them to either augment and determine whether we're going to do them more frequently or less. I don't think anybody suggested that we would look at this information or determine what we're going to do in a perfunctory manner. We're actually called to do this because we were facing problems. And the only way we can see if we're effectively addressing the problems is to follow things and follow them closely. And then if we see that it's warranted to step back, we do that. I don't know that we've seen that yet.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think having this on a schedule doesn't mean we go quiet in the middle, right? It's if something serious happens, we take it up right away. This is kind of like the floor of the times we discuss, not necessarily the ceiling, right? It's not like we will only discuss this 3 times a year. I think this is a framework that we can put in place, which we can build on.
We do agree that then, as a body, this is something that's necessary.
I don't think that anyone on this committee will disagree that, a look at climate and culture is not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I like the idea, Sandeep, that you said the 3 times a year, because I don't think we have any agenda item that we consistently put on at every single meeting. And that way will give us some room. And if we get into the year and we feel like maybe we need to meet more and meet less or put it on more or less, that's something that, people can discuss. But I think that having that time in between time is also important. And I think I look at like the Anti-Semitism Coalition, and the cadence of those meetings has been really productive this year. So if you're discussing it too often, you might not see the results that you want.
I think there's another actual resource, information from the Anti-Semitism Coalition, information that we could get from Concord Carlisle Anti-Semitism Awareness or Concord Carlisle Solidarity Initiative, to find out from both communities how things are feeling. So there are a number of sources that we can use as touch points to find out how our communities feel, and also canvassing both Aisha and Michelle for our Boston families. So this is something that with our coffees we failed to do. This is something that we did not necessarily touch upon in years previously, because if we had been mindful of that, perhaps we wouldn't have gotten the complaint that we did. So I think there are reasons for us to be mindful, to be vigilant, and to use all the potential tools that we have to just have our finger on the pulse of our school and our community, with an eye toward making things better for our students.
So just one thing oh, sorry, Sandeep, I just realized you raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Oh, no, I raised my hand because I don't want to hog up all the conversation. So I'll let others talk, and then once no one else is talking, just remember.
Just what I was going to say is, I wonder, do we need, similar to the communication working group as we're working on Story of the Schools, do we need a working group just to come up with what the framework, like what do we mean by a framework, so that we can move that along, and that is potentially even some homework for people, because again, for me, as I said earlier, like besides all the things that people mentioned, data is important to me.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that it is tied back to something and not just whatever happens to be top of mind whenever we're meeting about this. So if a working group makes sense to people, as a way of helping to put this together in time for the start of the year, that is something that I would support.
So I agree with you on. I think us putting our heads together and thinking, well, this is a good idea. I was thinking of it more as a goal instead of a working group, because I don't know if a working group will turn back its results in time for us to be effective next year. So perhaps it's a goal that we, one of the steps of the goals could be, what does this framework look like? What are the measurables? Michael pointed out there are multiple different groups from which we could get data, aggregate all of those, and obviously we collect our own data, right, and see what that looks like, and obviously with all student privacy is paramount. We don't want to infringe on that, but see what we can learn from.
I guess I'm setting it as a goal to figure out what we want in terms of data. Is that what you're saying?
How we measure or what the framework looks like.
I think that might actually be too slow to set a goal. I might suggest that certainly in school systems, this has been done before, and there might be people that have skills. And off the top of my head, I can think of 2 facilitators that have been in town recently and actually been in our schools, Carlos Hoyt, Donna Hicks, in terms of looking at ways to look at this. And actually, Carlos had done this, and his Dr. Hoyt had done this, and actually presented at the Bias and Data Incident Reporting Work Group for what he'd done through his schools, and to give us a primer on how we might look at it, and we could not have to reinvent the wheel for us, but perhaps tweak the wheel so it fits our environment. And that might give us something that would be applicable, almost applicable sooner, and we could put it in place. I might suggest that we look to see if there are other models, and I'd be glad to reach out to both.
So, Laurie, can I ask you a question? I know you track this in the district, right? Do you have some thoughts you could, I guess, send our way on what we might use to, or what you used to, and see if that's adequate or if there is something we need to build on?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes our issue is we're overwhelmed with how much data we have. So maybe there's a path there to sort through it all. We're anxious to get the local, we have the aggregate YRBS for all the districts that took it, but that's obviously not what we're really looking for. That's due to us any minute now. We have Panorama, which I've been doing a lot of thinking about. Panorama is like your MCAS dipstick. It's not helping you diagnose what's actually going on. It's like MCAS versus DIBELS in the elementary school. Like if we don't do DIBELS, we don't know why we're getting what we're getting on MCAS. So for me, Panorama is a summative check-in once a year. It'll be high level progress or not progress. I think we need these other tools to look at. I know we've talked about data dashboards for incidents and things. It's never as simple as it sounds. I guess that's my short answer after many years of trying to figure out how to do that work. But I think that's some of what I'm hearing you talk about too, is something like that, where we give you some reference to incidents. And then there's just so much in the gray as to what happens on a daily basis. We get allegations that don't turn out to be actual incidents. We've been talking a lot about about that because that's where a lot of our time is going, is getting those concerns and then vetting them, and maybe nothing to that egregiousness is happening, but there's some gray there that we're not comfortable with. So, yeah, sorting all that out. Plus, I think the triangulation of the data with the proactive work we're doing on cultural competency, professional development, and the playbook, which is all the anti-bias work, and what we're hearing from the kids, which Michael just mentioned. The leadership of those affinity groups have been changed. They're changing me the more we talk to them. They want us talking about not any one group, but all groups, and how do all kids feel connected. So maybe there's a triangle. I mean, I'm really anecdotally off the top of my head here, but maybe there's a triangulation of all that qualitative, quantitative data to sort through, to look at what we're doing and what else we could be doing.
I'd love to see qualitative stuff too, right? Because yes, quantitative is great, but I have, as you know, 2 kids in the school system. If they experience something, I don't care if it's rare, right? I just care that it
Yeah.
happened. So
Absolutely.
I think qualitative also helps a lot.
I agree. The things that I found most moving is hearing from students, hearing from their parents, um, across all three of our communities. So the objective data is nice. The protocols and programs that we have in place are nice, and we should be vetting them. But the important thing is seeing at the end of the day what it's like when the rubber meets the road. How are the end users feeling about the results? And so we take pieces of all of that. We could take pieces of what we hear from our community affinity groups, and then that we sit with that. I don't doubt that there's a lot of data to be gathered, but this is why I was asking early on that we change the focus not from that bias and hate working group to our bias climate and how folks are feeling. That would be useful, and actually I think necessary as we go forward. So thanks.
That's intent versus impact, which we talk about a lot, and I think that's where you're going with those ideas.
Can I just ask, just thoughts on summer work in this regard, and then how we reconvene in August here?
I kind of like the idea of, I'm just going to try and make everybody happy now, because that seems to be the mode we're trying to go in. So I like your idea of a working group. I might suggest that Brian and Sandeep and Michael work together over the summer to develop a plan for for us to go with next year. And I guess I totally appreciate all the input from our students and the affinity groups. I guess the one thing that I don't want to happen is for us to kind of spotlight our students in a public meeting and ask them to report on things. Like, I don't think that's helpful to the student, and sometimes it can be really harmful. So I think we just have to be careful in how we're gathering that information. And I would then look to Lori or Andrew Niamichi or the professionals to have some of those private conversations with students and bring the information to us. So, and I did, Sandeep, also like your idea of a goal of putting it somewhere in there, because then you can make it smart, measurable, and put all of everything we want to get done during the year for climate and culture into that goal. So it's kind of like taking everything that we just talked about together, and maybe, sorry that I want to voluntold you to do something for the summer, but I think
Thank you, Tracy. That's a good summary.
you're not a quorum either. I guess I'll also say you're not a quorum. So that's
but working groups have to post. So
yeah.
The working group has to post, sorry, but
if we're going to do that, I think either Michelle or Aisha would be great to be part of it too.
You read
or both.
Yep. I was just going to suggest that.
Michelle, I don't know if you want to think about that one and talk to Aisha, not to put you on the spot, but I think the concept is good. It's just a matter of who it was going to be.
I had already unmuted to suggest the same thing. So she and I can talk, but one of us will do it. I'm happy to do it. I just don't want to take it if she wants to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think, Lynette, I will also say that whether it's you or me, I think Carlisle representation is important, but
yeah.
Why don't you and I just talk about that one?
Yeah.
So I think we got a few things. Summer working group so that we can come back in August with more concrete ideas. I do agree that a climate and culture goal where, maybe the working group is the first thing or a part of it, but again, it's not to say that we're get to the point of June 30th. It's to help us give visibility to this and move the needle on it over the course of the year. I think those are good next steps. Any final
You're not going to
feedback?
set a goal that erases all of the isms that we're all trying to wish we could erase. You're going to set a goal that says we're trying to do more to make it better for kids. Yeah,
exactly. Any final comments on this?
I guess
right.
just a question in terms of reaching out to any facilitators that have experience in this. Or is that something we'll talk about in the work group?
I would say we talk about it in the working group. I also want to reach out to other school committees, and it was something that was on my list before this meeting, and I just ran out of time, but
Okay.
reach out to some of the other chairs to see what they may be doing in this area as well. All right. So that ends our discussion items. Thank you, everyone, for talking through that one. It is time for executive session if somebody would like to make a motion.
I move that the Concord School Committee and Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 3 of Open Meeting Law to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the K-12 administrative assistants and CTA, ESPs, and not to return to open session.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Check aye.
Kelleher, aye.
Morano, aye.
Cardi, aye.
Watterson, aye.
Williams, aye.
All right, that concludes tonight's public portion of the meeting. We won't be returning to executive session. Thank you, everybody.